little bit about how you got started in journalism, kind of where you went to school, what your jobs were before you came here?
Well, I'm from Durant in southeastern Oklahoma, right on the Texas border. And I got into radio when I was 15, as a lot of people did my age. If you go back over several in Oklahoma, worked in high school in radio and got the bug for broadcasting and then for journalism. And I went on to OU and then worked for KTOK in the Oklahoma News Network the whole time I was at OU. So that was my entree to journalism, and a fascinating world where you meet so many interesting people. You're on the front lines of almost everything, and it wasn't difficult to what a young person's appetite with those kinds of incentives dangling before you.
These days, journalism has changed so much, but the things that haven't changed are, like you talked about, a young person's appetite, the essential basics of storytelling. So compared to now, what was modern journalism like when you were young and a journalist upstart?
Well, I think it was about the same. It was a lot easier to get into then. It was just amazing how easy it was to fall into journalism. If you had a healthy sense of curiosity and anything going for you at all, knew how to express yourself, you could get into journalism. It's a lot tougher for young people now to break in. And there's so many competing stimuli, I'm not sure you find quite as many people who understand journalism as well. Sports is probably the best entry point for a lot of young people because they do understand sports. They understand the people who describe sports, and that just gets them into the game. Then they veer out and they see more substantive, different kinds of opportunities in journalism.
I guess sports would be easy because there's the story's there.
Yes, I mean
the excitement's there. It's all built in.
They've even found computer programs that will write sports stories. But yes, a lot of drama, a lot of good narrative, beginning, middle, and end. A lot of the basics of journalism are all covered in sports news.
I've been having a bit of a conversation on LinkedIn. I'm in a professional journalists group, and I asked a question about whether journalism schools should teach basics of HTML code, sort of like they teach the basics of line editing. And I've gotten a lot of passionate replies on both sides. With modern journalism, modern ways of storytelling, of broadcasting almost. How has journalism students changed over the years?
Yeah. Well, journalism is much more complex technologically than it used to be. I was very fortunate to come up through broadcasting. I was always used to the technology. From my first day on the job, technology was a huge part of it, and you had to learn that alongside journalism. Also, broadcasting is a team effort in many cases, and most multimedia things are team efforts. So I think people coming from the electronic media world just have a fluidity and a comfort zone that maybe some of the print people don't have because it's more of a solitary enterprise. But one of the big battles in journalism schools right now is how much technology to teach. Does it impede the basics of journalism and good storytelling, good content creation, or does it enhance it? And you will see people on both sides of that divide. And my answer would be is both. People have to have the technology these days in order to be good communicators, good storytellers. It's not a bad thing at all. It's a very good thing. And it's not wrong to teach it alongside the elements of good story construction and ethics and social responsibility. They all go hand in hand, but it does complicate the journalism education because it tries to cram a lot into a very small package.
Tell me a little bit about your job. What is a dean, and what is your role in the school?
Well, I think dean is the best position in higher education because even though you're middle management, you are close enough to the students to still make a difference. You can teach courses, you can see students in the hall interact with their lives. When they walk across the stage at graduation, you still know who they are. And yet you're high enough that if you have a vision for what should be done, you can help push that vision and make a difference. So it's a very good place to be. Frustrating to a lot of people because you have so many competing interests. You have the faculty and the students, the alumni, the professionals, the other people within the university, and those don't always go smoothly together, and you're caught in the middle of a lot of that, and you're trying to balance out a lot of competing interests.
What are some of the action items that you have during the day? Are you a fireman? Are you a psychologist? Are you like the head administrator? I mean, what are some of the, when you sit down at your computer and you hit your go button, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we've got a great staff here at Gaylord College, so it gives me a lot more flexibility to do the things I want. But yes, being a fireman is a big part of the job here, especially in our college, because we don't have departments. There's no buffer. Everything comes straight up to the dean's office, at least. But I mean, clearly my reason for being here is to try to provide a guiding vision for trying to always be stretching things, always asking how can we be better. I love the University of Oklahoma. I love being back in Oklahoma, especially under David Bourne's leadership. I think we're in a perfect position to excel. The only negative here is that we are isolated. We are hundreds of miles from the other great journalism schools in America. We're not right in New York or Chicago or LA, the hubs of media where things are moving at the speed of light. We have to work harder to be on top of those trends, to make sure that we're as innovative as they are, to challenge ourselves, to get better, to move differently, and to adapt. And I guess that's my greatest challenge, is to artificially insert that sometimes, just to try to keep us on our toes and make sure that we're as good as we can be.
I guess the adrenaline that comes with those sort of events that happen or trends emerging are essential parts of the storytelling process. It's hard to be bored and write a song. It's hard to be bored and tell a great story. You know?
Well, we're a fast-moving field, and a field in crisis in some ways. In other ways, it's a field of great opportunities for the next generation who want to write the rules of how journalism is given to the citizens in a democracy. So fortunately, our students see it as a very exciting time, and that's energizing on its own.
Right. So what is sort of a thumbnail sketch of your vision of what the future of journalism is when you're talking to students who are, you can see their excitement and inspiration, and they want to be writers just like H.L. Mencken wanted to. You know, everybody's got that same thing. But then they look at the industry and they're like, wow, it's in crisis mode. No one knows if they can ever. Everyone's getting their news this way, but no one's figured out how to monetize it. So there's all these sort of conflicts going on. How do you articulate to the students how to maintain that excitement?
Yeah. Well, journalism is one of those industries that's in transition in every possible way, from its business model to its work procedures to its value, and we're having to confront all of those things. But one thing I am absolutely sure of is there is a value on good storytelling and quality content. And I think we're approaching a time where all the multiplicity of sources are going to create such a Tower of Babel out there that people are going to seek out where they think the most reliable, objective reporting of the news is. And when journalism in the 21st century builds its model to satisfy that, I think it's going to be very successful, and we're going to have a reversion back to some trusted sources that people can rely on.
When I was at the boathouse, it seemed one of the themes that the rowing coach kept hitting on is, look at how great this place is. And when you're a student and you come here and you see all the effort and all the money and all the time and all the love that's been put into creating this space, you know, with the beautiful new computers. And I mean, I think that, at least from my perspective, this physical space, this brick and mortar setup here, it demonstrates the dedication that OU is saying, come here and be the best you can be. So how much easier does it make the student's job, for one thing, but your job to know that you're not in some old rundown thing that was built in the 60s, you know?
Well, my standard stump speech when I was a dean at 2 other universities was about the terrible facilities and how we had to have something better. They stole that from me at OU because these are the best facilities in the nation, perhaps the world. We are so pleased and grateful to have the kinds of technology and building we have here at OU, thanks to David Boren and the Gaylord family foundations. I think it's really good, particularly at this time of crisis for journalism, to have a building here that makes a statement. Journalism is here for the long run. This building is brand new. It's the best it can be. And so are the students we're sending into the world, into this field. And it's that sense of optimism through place that we are projecting that I think it's just part of the equation there of how we're going to improve life for Americans through good journalism.